We assist organization in sourcing for talent staff from junior level up to senior level. In addition to that, we do provide training, especially right now with online webinars and business and HR consultancy. We have been starting the webinar series for the past few weeks. We thought that we should be able to contribute to the society and invite experts in different subject matters, as we are all tackling different challenges right now, and so that they can be able to guide us through and provide some insight on what needs to be done. Next slide, please. So for Zoom etiquette, this webinar will be recorded for future use, so there is no need for you to write things down. We're going to share the presentation slides as well. Make sure that you minimize your background noise and stay on mute and turn off the webcam, except for the panelists who we want to be able to see them. And we have the webinar chat box. You can use that in case that when it comes to Q&A session, you can write your questions and we'll be able to address them accordingly. Don't interrupt. Make sure you raise your hand during a Q&A session. And as you know, webinars are more fast-paced than the regular lectures or talks, so we don't have time for self-promotion and introductions at this point. Next slide, please. So we have 3 panelists today, including myself. Our first panelist is Pete Novat. She's the Chief of Digital Transformation and Products with NMB Bank. We also have Jumane Mtambalike, who is the CEO of Sahara Ventures, and Joseph Manirakiza, who is the Country Director of HDIF. And of course, me, Country Director of CV People Africa, I'll be running the session as well. In terms of the bio for the speakers, Pete was the appointed Chief Digital Transformation Products, and he's the member of the ESCO team in January 2018. His team is responsible for providing NAB clients in Tanzania a full range of financial products and services, delivered with unmatched convenience and exceptional client experience. Pete directs NMB's digital delivery channel, network of ATMs, and its award-winning digital banking platform that supports millions of NMB clients, including mobile banking users. Prior to his appointment as a Chief Digital, he was the Chief Operating Officer for 4 years, responsible for leading NMB operation, shared services, and technology. We also have Jumane Mtambalike. He's an innovator, technology enthusiastic. He's an ideation from concept development. He has expertise in program development, project management expert. He's a technology blogger and a community reformer. He likes to work with youth or young people initiatives in the areas of innovation, technology, entrepreneurship, and youth capacity building programs. And we also have Joseph, who is the Country Director of Human Development Innovation Fund. This is one of the UK aid-funded largest innovation program in Tanzania. They're the ones who run the Innovation Week. We had it around, I think, March. HDIF had so far financed and technically supported over 40 innovative projects across health, education, and WASH sectors. And besides providing grants and technical assistance, they also do try to catalyze and develop the Tanzanian innovation ecosystem through working with various partners and enablers such as innovation hubs, development agency, and government agency. And of course, my experience ran in the areas of business management and talent management. Expertise do include startup experience, idea to execution, executive search and placements. And my mission is to make sure that we build talent organization and facilitate the realization of excellence in people and organization. Next slide, please. So one of the focus topics that we have today, we wanted to discuss the importance of creativity and innovation under COVID-19. And also we wanted to talk about upskilling and reskilling the workforce, and also what are the practical ways that leaders can, transform digitally. If you have been wondering what time is it to start upskilling your workforce or even yourself, the answer is not today, not tomorrow, not even yesterday. You should have started at least 3 years ago. The time is now. Digital transformation is catalyzing an upskilling and reskilling revolution. And as we all know, COVID-19 is the one which is forcing us all to transform digitally. So what's the difference between upskilling and reskilling? Upskilling is about learning new skills within the same job function, and reskilling is about learning new skills for a different job function. Next slide. So why is reskilling and upskilling important? First of all, from the employer's perspective, it's good because it increases productivity, and of course it does help to support the overall strategy. And in terms of employee retention, it does help because as you train and upskill your workforce, it means that they're going to be working for you. You can be able to promote from within. You don't have to poach from outside the organization. And also from employee perspective, once you upskill and reskill yourself, you can be able to get promoted, get a better job, and of course, better salary, as we all want. Next slide. So in 2020, LinkedIn released a report, and they mentioned from their survey that these are the top 5 skills which are needed. Number 1 is creativity. They're looking for people who can, think outside the box, people who can come up with, solution on different challenges creatively. Persuasion, collaboration, adaptability. As you all know, people are looking for people who are agile, people who can be able to adapt and change within as the environment requires, and also emotional intelligence. And also top 5 hard skills needed. These are technical skills. Blockchain, actually it is number 1. Cloud computing, analytical reasoning, artificial intelligence, and user experience design. Next slide. So with all these open learning sources, how come, we still experience skills gaps? There are so many challenges. One of the first challenges is that is getting managers to make learning a priority for their teams. Sometimes organizations are so focused on the strategy, on sales, and you forget that it's important to upskill and reskill, your team, your workforce. And also creating that culture of learning. That is also one of the biggest challenge. And increasing employee engagement in learning. And we have also seen that many firms still follow the traditional models where learning is all too often planned and implemented from the top down, which is not much room for employees to learn new skills outside their, immediate curriculum. So on the employer's perspective, it's very important to invest in employee development. Organizations should have an innovation culture that encourages employees to stretch themselves, to try new things, operate outside of their comfort zone. What kind of idea can they come up with? We're talking about corporate innovation. And also companies must be ready to look at tomorrow's challenges and opportunities. Like, for example, right now, companies need to assess, what are the skills gap, what do we have on board, what kind of skill set are we going to need in the next 2 to 3 years so that we become relevant. And also firms need to adopt modern learning approach that combines both the employer and employee-driven training. Modern learning allows firms to recommend courses that they think workers will need. But also we have to involve employees also to find out what are their interests, what are their passion, what do they want to learn? Because by engaging them, it means that we are including them, and also they get to increase their skill set. So it's not only the employer side, but also employee as well. Next slide, please. So it's very important to invigorate leaders when it comes to addressing the shortage of skills or digital skills. We need to start at the top, at the leadership level. And that can be achieved by understanding the technology. As leaders, you yourself, you have to understand technology. You cannot say that you as a leader, you don't know the digital skills and you want your employees to do the same. So it has to start from the top. And also leaders have to understand the technologies available to ensure that the business has its finger on the pulse. And also embracing mentorship. Leaders that lead by example need to motivate their employees to learn and embrace the changes that the digital can bring across the business, regardless of the department or skill level. And also having that culture of continuous learning, while introducing a training program is effective way to upskill employees. So learning initiatives are much more successful when leaders also understand the fundamentals of the digital and how it can enhance a business. So we have different platforms that do offer online learning. The first one is LinkedIn Learning. We have Coursera, Udemy, Skillshare, FutureLearn, and Class Central. And I would like to introduce our hashtag today, Upskilling and Reskilling Challenge. We are giving people challenge to go and upskill and reskilling, yourself during this time. We have so many courses available. I'm just going to share that on the next slide. So it's important for us to learn, to use this time to learn. Next slide, please. So there are different platforms. I will share this presentation, different links. Ivy League, we have more than 450 courses which are offered online for free by Ivy League courses. Ivy League, these are prestigious universities in different parts of the world. They're offering courses for free. So it's up to you to go and select which one you're interested about and which one you can learn. Imagine you're putting that on your resume or on your CV that you have received some courses from Harvard. It gives you a competitive edge. So use this hashtag, Upskilling and Reskilling Challenge, and show us all the courses that you have completed. Next slide. So that's it for me. I would like to take this opportunity to invite the panelists, and hopefully they are already on board. Yes. Joseph?
Yes, Nika, I'm here.
You're here, okay. And Yumane, are you already here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. And Pete? Okay, I think Pete told me he might be running a little late because he was in a meeting. But we'll start, I can start with Jumane. Jumane, why do you think creativity and innovation is important as we are now facing the global pandemic?
Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone. So it has always been important, but I think right now is even more crucial. Things are changing, and most of the time Africa adapts technology out of necessity, and this is the time of necessity. So some of the things that initially we used to think as luxury or things that are just used by a certain class of people, right now everyone needs to access them. We are seeing parents taking time to learn about new technology, new e-learning platforms so that they can be able to continue to support their kids. We are seeing BBC, people who were born before computers, senior public officials are also moving towards using platforms such as Zoom. They're moving toward using platforms such as Slack so that they can be able to coordinate work activities and to continue to stay relevant. So beyond just technology, since technology is a tool, even some of the business processes are also being re-engineered so that to ensure business operations are continuing. Number of meetings have been reduced, the size of the meetings have been reduced, people are encouraging more to work in a more efficient way. The cost of business processes has also been cut down. So in one way, on the positive side of COVID-19, has forced organizations and companies to completely rethink their approach and to adapt innovative ways to work so that they can continue to remain relevant. So that's, at least for now, that's what I'll comment.
Okay, I think that's very good. And you mind, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, so you've been in the landscape of the Tanzania, ecosystem, dealing with young people, entrepreneurs. What are the challenges that you have seen in terms of innovators or SMEs, and what gaps and how can we solve them in order to make it relevant to COVID-19? Because there are different challenges and we need to come up with innovation solution.
Yeah, so it's a very wide question. If we want to focus, let's say, on SMEs, there's a lot that needs to be done. For tech-related businesses and startups, since they are not asset intensive, there's always flexibility to pivot in a business model in time like this. But for traditional businesses and SMEs, the challenge is very tough for them because they need to completely change how they do business. And that's where things like digital economy comes in, things like platform economy, because some of these traditional businesses need to adapt to new platforms to continue to trade. For example, people who used to sell products through traditional restaurants, they need now to move to platforms like Uber Eats or Food Sasa or Piki so that they can continue to do business. The same way for service-oriented businesses where people need to go there, like physically to get their packages, they need to adapt platforms such as Dash so that things can be delivered to their client. So businesses, in terms of being able to cope with the COVID-19 crisis, they really need to think in a more innovative way and to try to see how they can capitalize technology. We know technology is not everything, technology is just a tool, but I think this is a very crucial time for SMEs to capitalize on the platform economy, but also something which will come out very clear after this crisis, if everything went well and we are approaching maybe when we are approaching the new normal, we will see most of these businesses also potentially retrenching most of their employees because they'll be changing their business processes because already they will know who is important, who is not important, who we can live with, who we can't live with. So that is another alarming situation, which something needs to be done. But again, you are talking about reskilling and skilling. This is a good time also for most of these employees who are being employed by SMEs to start to think on what are the relevant skills they're supposed to have, because post-corona, the most interesting thing will be the rise of the gig economy and gig platform. Already we are seeing platforms like Oknasi Plus in Tanzania, people being able to present and sell their skills. So we see more of those platforms since most of the informal employment opportunity, they won't be there anymore, especially on the corporate side. Most of the formal employment opportunity, they won't be there because most of the SMEs and small businesses, they will be forced to cut down their spending. And in order for them to be able to continue to be in a going concern mode, they'll definitely have to retrench. So two important things. Most of the SMEs, they will start to capitalize on platform economy, and it's already happening. A lot of businesses are happening in e-commerce. And the second thing, because of massive retrenchment, especially of expats, we expect most of these people to move toward gig platform and to start to outsource their skills in platforms like Upworks, Fiverr, Freelancer, and one of our own in Tanzania, Oknasi Plus.
Okay, that's very good. So I'm going to go back to Joseph. Are you in?
Yes, I'm in.
Yes, Joseph, you have been working with a lot of innovators, especially on the Innovation Week. You guys have moved all over across Tanzania. I'm asking also you that it's almost a similar questions. what gaps have you seen from the SMEs, and how can we be able to improve ourselves so that we can be able to come up with solutions which are at hand in terms of, innovation wise?
Well, thanks. I think most of the key points have been covered by Jumane, but basically, maybe just moving to a different kind of aspect that probably hasn't touched on, but which I know is dear to his heart, is about the business environment that the SME is operating. I think we've been talking about, something that we have been hearing from the ecosystem, something that people talk about, that it's high time that the policy environment kind of shifts and adapt to the new environment. I mean, this is just generally not even focusing on COVID-19, but basically looking at how innovators and startups that are more agile can be supported even to provide solutions in situations like this. I think we are reading from whatever place that most of the agile companies that are supporting in coming up with solutions to the pandemic are basically startups. But that doesn't just happen overnight. I think those startups need to be supported. They also need to operate in a way that is not is so conducive to them. So many people have been talking about, kindly blaming the government that maybe the government is not moving to the pace that the current technological world is pushing us to move to. And I think that's actually the job of every one of us who is working in this current ecosystem, to help and support each other to push ourselves towards that. You might have seen that right now there are so many initiatives that are coming up that most of them are coming from actually the informal kind of innovators. So you can imagine what would have happened if there was some kind of environment that would have nurtured these many innovators who are coming up, and probably wouldn't be talking about the shortage of PPEs, for instance, I don't know, because there would be so many people who can actually be able to contribute to that kind of solution. But as it is right now, I think there is still work to do to be able to support innovators and the ecosystem players in Tanzania. So that if something like this happens, you can actually be able to call on them to support and come up with ideas very quickly. Because we know if we have to count on established companies, there are so many bureaucrats that kind of delay decisions, which doesn't happen for startups, for instance. So I think this is more of a wake-up call to be able to support these other kind of businesses that are more agile and very quick to think on their toes and come up with solutions when they are quickly needed.
And Joseph, so as HDIF, what are you guys doing right now in terms of supporting the innovation ecosystem or innovators? Because I've seen people right now in COVID-19, they're saying we need to partner with hackathons, hubs. What are you guys doing as HDIF to support them?
Yeah, the first thing that we have done was basically to talk to people we're already working with, mainly grantees that already we have committed funds to urge them to think differently from whatever plan they were kind of implementing. Because everyone knew that there needs to be like direct and quick implementation, intervention. So it was quite easy, first of all, to go to people that were already committed to. And there's quite a number who have come up with quick solutions. I think some of you might have seen some of our grantees in rural areas where actually there's that kind of crying demand with having to support the hand washing campaign, for instance. Some of our grantees have been supporting that. And even within the education sector, some of the grantees that we are supporting have been coming up with great initiatives that actually now contribute to that. But we don't want to limit ourselves there. Very soon we're going to be working with other innovators within the ecosystem to see which other quick initiative we can be able to support apart from just grantees that we're working with. So that's something that we're working on. There has been some work in any process, but very soon we are going to be announcing. But for us, what we want to do more is not just about, because HDF is just one player with limited resources. what we want to do, we have so many partners in the ecosystem. We have corporates who want to get involved, but probably do not know how to do it. So we just want to open that avenue to expose everyone who is doing something initial, who's coming up with a solution, to be able to be seen by these potential supporters, be it corporate, be it development partners and staff. We've been in several discussions so far, but personally, I believe in more action than just talking. So that's something that we are working on, and soon we are going to be coming up something tangible.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. Back to you, Jumane. And also I would like to know about Sahara Ventures. You usually work with a lot of innovators, many different hubs. What are you guys doing at the moment in order to promote innovation for COVID-19 challenges?
Yeah, so thank you so much. As you said already, our mission as Sahara Ventures is to build Africa innovation ecosystem, but also we zoom in Tanzania, since Tanzania is our home country. So what we're doing right now, we have a campaign called Growth in the Crisis. Through that campaign, what we're trying to do is to help startups and SMEs navigate the crisis. We have done more than 7 different accelerator cycles, and right now we have already engaged with more than 100 startup companies, including 36 SMEs that we've worked with through our Rich Accelerator. And they're all going through a very difficult and a rough patch. So what we are trying to do is to help them, first of all, being able to adapt strategies that will help them to navigate this crisis, which include helping them to stay healthy in terms of the resources they use in their businesses, helping them to rethink their strategies at the management level in terms of how they manage people, their internal processes, but also their product and services. But also we are actively engaging them to work with our technical team, especially our finance team, to help them maintain their burn rate so that they can be able to remain relevant. So the Growth in the Crisis campaign is also looking for other models on what is happening in other countries and what other SMEs in other countries are looking to are actually doing, and how can we replicate it here back home. But also we've been doing some surveys just to gather some insight on what are the most pressing issues that are currently facing. When I was commenting, when I was first talking for the first time, I told you guys, we expect a lot of SMEs to retrench. This is because of one of the survey we did, where 67% of the SMEs that responded, they say one of their biggest costs that is troubling them right now is actually to pay salaries for employees. So they're going through a difficult time. We are trying our level best to help them with the strategy and internal process. But the campaign Growth in the Crisis goes beyond just helping them as individuals, but also to mobilize other resources. And as Joseph said, to bring other players in the ecosystem to have conversation on how we can effectively work together to help them navigate the crisis. Already we are talking with HIDIF, already we are talking with UNDP. We've been attending a lot of meetings to have this kind of conversation. So that is what we're trying to do from the Sahara side, the campaign Growth in the Crisis. But also we understand, as I told you, technology as a tool can play a very crucial role. So for some of the businesses, we are helping them to digitize their processes, meaning that helping them to capitalize on the platform economy and to move their businesses online so that they can continue to remain relevant. But also we have been involved in some activities with some of our partners in the ecosystem. For example, we are working with UNFPA on ensuring that people, especially during this time when they're at home, their global data says cases on gender-based violence, but also access to crucial sexual reproductive health services has gone down. So we are running again a campaign to try to see if we can come up with innovative solution with UNFPA and other partners in the ecosystem to address that issue. So being an innovative organization and a champion of the innovation ecosystem in Tanzania and one with the other with other partners, we are working with different players to try to see how innovation, tech, and entrepreneurship can all of them be used as a tool to help our ecosystem navigate the crisis. But also from our side, we understand in order to be able to navigate this crisis, require a lot of coordination, leadership, but also government involvement. So we also work with other government partners, initiated some conversation with the like of NEC, try to see what we can do together to help some of these businesses navigate the crisis. Also, we are trying to flag out some of the challenges that businesses are facing and propose some solution. For example, as you already know, in Europe and US, businesses are being bailed out by the government, but that is not happening in Tanzania. So we're encouraging things like innovative financing model, guarantee bonds, and things like that can help to support these businesses. Because one thing which is extremely important, the SME sector employ 80% of the African new employment in the labor market. And they say 3/4 of new entrants to the job market are expected either to be self-employed or to be employed in a micro enterprise in Africa. So if there's something that we can't do is to allow these small businesses to die through this crisis. So what we're trying to do is to try our level best, mobilize resources and work with other partners to help these SMEs and startups to navigate the crisis. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jumanne. Back to you, Joseph, on digital transformation. Unfortunately, I don't think Pete will be able to make it. I think the board meeting has extended. So I would like to ask you, because right now we are all moving to the digital era, what are the practical ways that leaders or organizations can do now to make sure that we are shifting to the digital world? Because it's not easy to just say okay, now everything is digital, you don't have the proper infrastructure. What can we do now as organization or as leaders? What are the practical ways we can make that digital shift?
Well, I think that's quite a crucial question because one, when a pandemic strikes or when a crisis strikes, it doesn't prepare you. You don't say, oh, I'm not ready for this, so I cannot cope. At the end of the day, whether it's a business, whether it's a government, whether it's an individual, you have to survive. And right now, what has happened is that many organizations have to now go remote. They are just telecommuting. They are just working online, something that we were not used to, so we have to adapt. Resources are scarce yet, and yes, and of course, many organizations haven't really invested probably in digital infrastructure to help them cope so well in this particular situation, but they've had to improvise. I'm sure most of you might have seen, it wasn't a minute, it was more, not even a joke, like a question that was asking who decided, who basically helped the company go digital, lead digital transformation. And most of the answers were about it's COVID-19 because it has actually forced people to actually go digital whether you like it or not. And that has come with a lot of constraints. For instance, people who are working within the ecosystem and you have to probably meet some of the partners or stakeholders I've been working with. If they haven't invested in a digital setup infrastructure, or maybe if they are not used to that kind of work and they cannot even move as swiftly as probably some of the startups can, that's a very huge problem. It's probably a good thing that probably Tanzania hasn't gone into like a hard lockdown, because it would have been very challenging for a lot of people. But if that happens, and we have to ask ourselves whether the key services that we're getting from, let's say, the government agencies or government offices is how are they going to be sustained during the crisis? Because we have seen, like, especially when it comes to corporate world, at least they could adjust. I mean, bank services are now have gone now digital. I think the digital service is actually probably earning more money to the banks than it was before, because people just don't feel comfortable going out and queuing in the banking halls. So that has been accelerated. It was already big. But what about if I need to go to register my company umbrella? Of course, the online system is working, but that could actually be accelerated. Maybe that's just one example where we have at least seen some work in there. But what about other services? If you want to go to hospital, now hospitals are actually classified as one of the red zones like for COVID-19, and you feel like, I'm not quite sure. Do we have infrastructure for telemedicine in country? It's just starting, but it's not there yet. So those are the kind of questions that we need to ask ourselves, like, how are the many sectors or maybe offices or agencies or government offices kind of taking up probably advantage of this to be able to fast track what probably could have been on shelves for so long. So I think this is more a wake-up call. We pray that we get out of this quickly and we don't get another crisis like this, but it should also kind of help us to think a bit faster into implementing our plans and basically move digital, because we cannot move back. That's where we are right now. So we should at least rush the decision to invest in this digital infrastructure, whether it's private or public or anyone else, because it's the reality we're living in, and you never know when the other crisis is going to strike.
Thank you so much, Joseph. I'll go back to Jumanne in terms of summarizing up. What do you think innovation will be like post-COVID-19? What do you foresee, the innovation ecosystem in Tanzania after COVID-19? What are the changes should we expect?
Okay, so I've seen your question that some people want to see my face. Okay, great. Post-COVID-19, what are we expecting to see from the innovation ecosystem? Am I right? That's your question?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. There are some few trends that we expect to see. First, it's already happening. We'll see more startups that are platform-oriented. Already, we are seeing apps like Gengeni, Food Sasa, and some like Smart Class, Iyo ya Kwanza. I think that's the first thing. There'll be a lot of this platform economy oriented application, because now a lot of services will be delivered via digital platforms. Another thing, I think we're going also to have a lot of e-learning platforms. I think there's Tesea now. Of course, you have the old ones like Shure Direct, Bongo Kids, but Smart Class is coming in. So there'll be a lot of e-learning platforms, which is good, that are coming into the market. I think we should expect to see that. The other thing is, I think co-IVD is also going to completely disrupt the culture of co-working in Tanzania. And that is very alarming to tech hubs, because initially we were getting bigger spaces because we knew that people pay for spaces. And now we need to find another value, because nobody will be paying for spaces. People will be comfortable working in restaurants, working in hotels, and it's already happening. Some of the hotels in town have been closed and people are using them as co-working spaces. So that is something which will happen. I think another thing which will happen, we'll see a lot of corporate company going for retainer experts, hiring them not on permanent basis, but under retainer agreement for specific tasks or gigs. That is something I see will happen, because now they've realized they don't need people full-time at the office. They can use them in 2 days, 3 days. So something like that will definitely happen, and this will force gig economy to take place more evidently in Tanzania. Another thing which I think we will see it happening, of course, We'll see a lot of traditional businesses moving online. I was talking to the CEO of Zudua.com. The number of visual shops in their platform has increased for more than 200%. A lot of like traditional businesses are moving online right now. Maduka, Kariako, things that you never expect them to see them online, they'll be moving online. So those are some of the issues I think that will happen post-COVID. So the issue of having more application and web apps toward platform economy, the issue of having more e-learning platform, the issue of technology hubs and business incubator being forced to change their business model. A huge chunk of revenue right now was coming from co-working, so they have to change that. The issue of people being employed permanent, that might go on, and people be employed under retainer basis because already companies understand who they need and whom they don't need. And also, I think another thing which will definitely happen on the government side, I think right now, most of the public offices will be forced to adapt to e-governance system and to digitize their processes, because it's already happening, and I think it will happen at even a faster pace because we are still navigating the crisis. We are not yet at the new normal. So as I said, when I started to share my point, I think I've been studying technology in Africa for the past 10 years and how people adapt technology in Africa. And they adapt technology in 4 phases. You have what we call the core technologies. These are the technologies that like nobody can live without them, like mobile phone. And then you have what they call like value-added services, paying for electricity bill, paying for water bill, and things like that. And then you have these what we call top layer luxury application, Uber Eats, I don't know, Food Sasa, or Taxify. Initially, they look like these are not for the underprivileged. These are not for the hyperlocal communities. It's for a certain class in the community. But because of COVID-19, a lot of people will move from this value-added service to actual apps and start to use the apps because they're being forced to do that. So there will be a lot of migration of people and there'll be a huge adoption of new technologies. And that issue of necessity versus convenience will almost become negligible because now having an access to an e-learning platform as a parent living in urban area is no longer a luxury but a necessity.
Thank you, Jumanne. I will go back to Joseph on the same question, but I wanted you to focus on the health sector because you are dealing with a lot of grants in the health sector, and you know, health sector now is flourishing, but of course there's still challenges involved. What do you think the innovation will look like post-COVID-19 for the health sector? How should we move forward? Because the COVID-19 is challenging our health sector to, you know, to improve and to flourish. What does it look like after COVID-19? Or what kind of processes or system do we need to put in place in order to make it, stand out as a sector itself?
Yeah, thanks. I think probably one of the sectors in Tanzania which is quite being challenged right now is the health sector, of course, followed by the education sector. And of course, others that probably Jumanne has already touched on. For the health sector, right now, I think what we are seeing is there are some of the solutions that probably we would not have thought before that we can actually be able to produce by ourselves. But right now, we are already seeing like startups that, okay, we can actually do this by ourselves because now the movements are already restricted. You cannot order something and you get it the following day when you actually need it tomorrow. So they can actually do things by ourselves. So the issue of like 3D, using the 3D printing capabilities which already have in the country to print the face shields or parts of ventilators, something. It's not something we could have thought about, but the crisis have actually forced us to think innovatively. That one. The second one, I mean, I've seen at least, I think 1 or 2 hospitals now moving medical consultations online. that's something that we haven't probably thought that would be very important, because we are used just to, you feel sick, you just to go to a pharmacy or hospital and then get checked. But right now, that might actually become a new norm, that hospitals are going to start investing that kind of capability, because they have seen that it can be necessary, and people do not actually have time all the time. If you are not really seriously sick, you can be able to consult your doctor online. So that's another thing. But maybe one key thing that probably has been facing the medical field, I think it's more on a policy issue. It takes a very long time for a certain protocol to be adopted within a medical field. Right now, I think nobody has been asking about these 3D printed masks or face shields, whether they have to be approved by TFDA or whatever, because they are needed right now. But if you had to go through the normal protocol of like having approved something to be used in a medical facility, it takes ages unnecessarily. So I think that's more of a lesson even for the policymakers in the medical field, that when you are faced with a certain situation, you might have to see how you can fast track your system or your processes to be able to save lives. So I think this is just one example that can actually be used by now. And for instance, HDF, we funded the one particular innovation that was done by one NGO that was supposed to use just simple technology to stop PPH. I think that's postpartum hemorrhage, to reduce, for instance, the maternal mortality after delivery. The challenge that the implementers were having was like to get this approved and actually included in the protocol. It's like a nightmare. So they had to go through many studies, like, operational kind of research to be able to prove that it works. You can prove it works, but it's still going to take time for you to convince the policymakers to adopt that. So something which is not very risky, but it's just like that kind of bureaucracy that has plagued that with the medical field. So I think one of the positives that we can take from the crisis is like, okay, sometimes you do not have to have that kind of make you delay implementing new changes that are going to help you save lives. So I think we can, if there's anything that we can learn from the crisis, that could be one of them. So other than that, I think the health sector is going to be, if we want to change, it's going to be like probably positively affect in terms of implementing changes after COVID-19, that just like any other crisis. Just that we have to adopt the ways of like, being agile in adopting changes and embracing new technologies and innovations. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Joseph. I don't know, do you have any summary points before we go to Q&A session on your area of innovation and working with young people? What is your advice at this point? Because we are seeing a lot of challenges, and it's like we're brainstorming, like what do we do? How do we start? How can we come up with solutions? Because there's so much going on, and people asking themselves, what do I do? And we just don't want to come up and copy and paste. So how can we create that kind of originality, come up with new solutions people have never thought of?
I think the fact that people come with so many things exciting of itself, because it is not every day people are being pushed to come with so many things. I think we should allow people to come with so many things. And also, I think the key thing is not invention, but it's innovation. People just need to innovate and be creative. If it's invention and it works, then it's okay. But if it's just adding value, it's also okay. I think the most important thing what we need to do as an ecosystem is to work together and to have coordinated effort. I really like what UNDP Accelerator and HDIF is doing, trying to bring people together to have conversation, choosing specific track on what you can work on, private sector, public sector, because I think it's very, very important. What we are facing here is a chaotic problem, and to address a chaotic problem, you need a systematic intervention. And a systematic intervention can be done by one person, can be done by private sector, it can be done by government themselves. It needs a collective intervention of everyone. Innovators can come up with very cool e-learning apps, but if people cannot access them using internet, then it's a problem. But if you hear statements like what Isham said, like, hey, we're creating a platform for people to access this e-learning platform for free, then that shows you it's a systematic approach. And innovators come up with a product, and an animal mobile network operator says, I'm going to create a platform for free. A parent can consume it at home. Government is setting the right policies for that. So we need a coordinated effort where like everyone, they're contributing so that we can be able to have even more practical solution. So for me, keyword should be coordinated intervention and collaboration between partners so that we can be able to come out of this crisis even stronger.
Thank you, Jumanne. And Joseph, back to you on the final thoughts before we go to Q&A. What are your final thoughts on innovation, digital transformation to SMEs, innovators, and even leaders? What do we do now?
Well, if there's one thing that we need to learn from this crisis is that we actually need to act on things that we do say that we should. Because I think, for instance, in Tanzania, we've been talking about e-governance for ages now. But if you look back, like, what actually have we done in that? And trust me, if we had invested much into that digital transformation for the country, probably we wouldn't be suffering the way we are. So that's one. Second, that's just for the government services and any other one. Second, I think it's a realization that we actually need these small businesses and the startups that we haven't been investing in actually helping. Because if we had made it easy for like startups to be able to operate in the country and actually created even a fund to support them, probably some of the solutions that we need as a country would be coming in more quickly than it is right now. We wouldn't be having to say we don't have like masks or 3D printers which are enough to print like ventilators and stuff like that. So I think it just kind of, if we want to gain something out of it, it's something that we can be able to say, okay, this crisis has taught us that we need to act differently. We need to come up with the best ways of thinking and also acting, rather than just investing in just meeting and not taking action about that. I think that's a very clear indicator that we can actually learn from the crisis and get out of it much stronger, as Jumanne has put it.
Thank you so much, Joseph and Jumanne. So now we'll move to Q&A session. I see there's a lot of questions. The first question came from Omari Bakari. I think he's addressing this question to me. As a recruitment agent, tell us if the linking data on new skills correlate with the local Tanzania private sector demands on employment. I met LinkedIn team, but they didn't have the disaggregate data for Africa only. As you know, data is something which we don't have available for Africa, but I can tell you, being in recruitment, what employers are looking for. The skills, like soft skills, like for example, problem solving. I see a lot of employers are looking for problem solvers. Communication skills, we are being told that Tanzanians were not able to communicate, whether orally or written, and also even the technical skills. Like for example, I see employers are always looking for people in sales, like sales leadership. That is the skills, not only is it only in the world general, but also here in Africa. People are looking for people who can bring customers in. Even right now, as we speak, as you know, production is going down because sales are going down. So people are looking for people who can be able to even sell during this time. So those are kind of skills that I see employers are always looking. And even computer skills. You might think that just because you know computer, but for some people it's a challenge. We see employers complaining somebody does not have the digital skills that, you know, are looking for. So this is what is coming from the from the employers. I think there was another question. Somebody raised their hand, but I don't see the name anymore. But I see there's a comment from Alan Kimambo. He's saying that just as we are speaking, we move to address the face shield gap by scaling our production to more than 1,000 pieces per day. Again, they have been approved by TMA Day yesterday, along with produced with 1,016 pieces. I think this is a comment. Okay, there are two participants who have raised their hand. The IT person, can you please unmute them so that they can be able to raise their questions? Nixon Lutenda, please go ahead.
Yeah, actually I was having the question regarding the COVID-19. But this is a new disease, and most of the organization are working around this disease. So my question is, and most of the organization are dealing with the IEC material in terms of public awareness. So I'm not quite sure if there is other alternative that we can monitor those IEC material if people are hearing, because we don't see the discussion around those because there is no cloud or mass meeting. So how can we monitor those IEC material regarding the COVID-19?
And this question is addressed to who, sorry?
It's addressed to Jumanne Mtambalike.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, Jumanne, please go ahead.
Nixon, I'm a software engineer, I'm not a health expert. What is IC material? Nikki?
Yeah. Yes.
What is IC material?
The IC material I'm referring to is like posters.
Okay.
Or banners, the big posters that create public awareness. Yeah.
So let me try to rephrase your question and tell me if I'm getting it right. So you're asking about the authenticity of some of the banners and messages that are being used on social media to communicate the safe procedure for COVID-19. If there's any standard to check whether they're accurate or not.
Yes, the standard to check if the effectiveness of it.
Okay, so first of all, it's very, very difficult. It's not within my mandate to respond to that question. I think WHO, they are setting the global standard. And I think for Tanzania, it's the Minister of Health. They're the one who are responsible to translate all the information, articulate the information, and make sure what goes to people is the correct information. But one challenge we are having with social media is the beast which you can't tell. So you don't control who posts what or what is the source of their information. And that is a challenge not only for Tanzania, but it's a global challenge. But what I'll say is, if I want to communicate a certain message for my team at Sahara Ventures, I will direct them to WHO official pages where there's clear procedures on what needs to be done if you want to address the issue. So if you want to post any message on social media regarding COVID-19, there's only one difference for us, which is WHO.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Nixon. I see there's another question from Engaisi Peter. He's saying that great stuff I'm hearing. Innovation in the workplace is quite complex, perhaps with the exception with startups since they have a wiggle room. I think the right culture also has to be in place for an employer to truly reap the benefits of its employees' innovation. What kind of changes should be made here? Curious to hear how organizations prepare their culture to come back stronger and even readier for innovation post-COVID-19. Either Joseph or Jumani can respond to that.
All right. Okay, you want to go first?
I will let Joseph start and then maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's partly what you have already addressed, Nike, that right now, what's going to happen is that employees are going to have to scale themselves. And a thing that we had been taking that it's actually within a company that you cannot just invest your skill or develop your skills in this particular digital skill or the other, it's no longer going to be a choice because it's either you shape up or you shape out, as they say. Right now, what this class is going to teach us, I mean, this is now in every sphere of work or life, is that we actually have to make ourselves relevant, because the more, like what Jimena has said, that employers are already realizing who they actually need, who actually they cannot do without. So that alone is enough to change the culture of people, and leaders already know where the pain point is in terms of a cost that they have to incur. So they're not going to actually think twice by cutting those costs they can actually be able to be profitable. So if that's not enough to actually change people's mindset and actually force them to change the way they approach self-learning and personal development, I don't know what it will. Because most of the time you kind of wake up when you're like, okay, oh gosh, I no longer have this job. And you have to go back and, once you have lost a job, getting it back is going to take you time. And you have to go back and start reskilling yourself when you're out of it, while you actually had that opportunity to actually reskill yourself while you're still working. So I think this is just a wake-up call for everyone, not just leaders, but leaders now have like a clear view of where their pain point is and where they can actually maximize revenue and also profit by reducing their costs. So I would encourage everyone that we shouldn't wait to get there where we are. We're actually left with no option.
Thank you.
So
we have, sorry, Jumane, you want to respond to that as well?
very short. So I agree with what Joseph said, but on top of that, so culture is strategy for breakfast. I think you know this already. So I think it's very, very important to increase communication. Most of the leaders right now, what they're getting it wrong is that they're not communicating. They're moving to a completely new strategy and then assuming that employees will move with them. And that is very, very dangerous. Try to communicate, try to agree on what tools, what resources are you using together, make sure there is no any resistance in terms of change management, so that they can be able to adapt these tools. Otherwise, you'll be investing a lot of time and resources in the wrong tools and nobody will be ready to adapting them. But on the side of employees also, I think this is the right time for learning, unlearning, and relearning, because things are changing really fast. And if you're not careful, it's very easy to become irrelevant. And since people are doing business process or engineering, you might find yourself already outside the bus and nobody needs you.
Thank you, Jumane. Actually, we have a question for you, Jumane. It's coming from Ellen Ongalo. How soon can ICT innovation be used to trace people who are exposed to COVID-19? Actually, this is a very good question.
I think tracing is not, I was watching the news, and this is in UK. I'm a football fan, so there was a question on how soon can we start to watch football again. So what UKs are trying to do is to come with something called immunity passport, and this immunity passport should be used for people who have been proven to have some kind of immunity. I'm not a doctor, so that they can be able to access public places. But the project has been struggling big time because of lack of accurate data. So for tracking solutions to work, whether using artificial intelligence or any other technology, we need real-time accurate data. I think data is the only thing which is preventing us to be able to adapt efficient tracking technologies to be able to search and capture these people in time, because that's another thing. You really need accurate data, accurate geodata and things like that to be able to track people.
Okay. Back to you, Joe. There's a question here. It says, is there any partnership agreement in flight with MOH so that correct data can be released timely? I think this is Ministry of Health. People want real data on a timely basis.
I think it's a short answer to that. We do not have any agreement with the Ministry of Health to that effect, because it would be actually outside our mandate anyway. But well, hopefully that people are listening, that this is actually what people need, and believe that and timely and real-time data is very important for decision making at a personal level, but business level, but also for the country. Yeah.
And who coordinates the response, and can partnership clusters do that? I don't know.
Well, I think that was related to the comment that was made by Alan about the 3D printed face shields. Right now, there are several groups that are working on that. It's basically responding to a problem that was posed that our doctors or healthcare workers do not have enough protection. So there have been volunteers who have already taken action. And I think the question has been, can we do this in a more coordinated way? I think the answer is yes. There's something that we are already working on. There are people that we are talking to see how we can actually amplify the efforts of the many volunteers in Tanzania America community who have already taken a step forward and have already been 3D printing those protective gears for our doctors. So it's just, we are kind of exploring on how it can actually be adequately coordinated, but this shouldn't discourage people already taken the first step in actually providing that solution. I think that's the short answer that I can give right now.
Okay, and I think this question is for me. As a recruiter, how can you tell someone has the necessary technical skills as you mentioned? As some have learned through informal ways or on job learning, on what technical skills do you advise someone to learn? The usual way people or employers do test people's technical skills is through interviewing process, from from the practical interview process, as well as test. Employers do usually give psychometric tests to test your abilities, but at the same time, they do take a chance on you. And if you go to a job and it shows that you were not able to do it, and you become a liability and you're fired. So those are the practical ways that employers do use. The IT, can you please unmute people who are raising their hand? I see Nixon has raised their hand again. Nixon, go ahead.
No, it was only one. I have no question.
Okay. I see there's a comment here. Digital platform development is growing and doing very well in Tanzania. The challenge is database of customers is not reliable and not easily to get them for serious business. Don't you think that some organizations are needed to prepare a reliable database for business? Because we have organizations that have database for their own business use. Please advise, as per COVID-19 experiences, there is a need of a digital platform for business continuity. Yumane, can you respond?
Okay. It's a bit tricky because when you talk about data in the private sector, unless you want to use it for impact and is under the CSR department, then it's a commercial data. So I don't know which angle is he or she coming from, but what I see, if the data is to be used for coordination of an effort to address a certain issue that is actually a result of COVID-19, I think through collaboration and partnership, we can be able to do that. But if you are a company and you're looking to penetrate a new market or to capitalize on the digital economy in Tanzania, then you either have to invest to get the data you need so that you can be able to build your business, or you need to find a strategic partner in a win-win situation so that you can come with a platform, they can share the data, and then you can do business. So I don't know if I've been able to respond. So it can either be a commercial relationship, or if it's for impact, it can be a CSR, and it has to make sense for both sides, unless it's a government data.
Okay, I think we have a hand from Emma. Emma, can you please unmute yourself and ask the question or comment? Emma. Okay. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. I've been listening to all the comments, very viable from Joseph, you, and Jumanne. I had two words coming out very clear, that collaboration. Collaboration is becoming up a lot, and we need to do more on that. I think whatever we're doing now on webinars, Zoom, and all meetings, we should include the ministry or the government together so that we hear our comments. So there'll be an action plan for that. Otherwise, we'll be speaking to ourselves. At the end of the day, nothing is going to happen. Nothing's going to happen, because what we're going through and the current situation we have, comments like we want to have data and all this should be heard from them. They are the ones to reply. It's not easy for us to do it. So my strong emphasis is that whenever we do such kind of this kind of webinar or Zooms meetings, we should call them. Should call the ministry or engage them so that we get the government, to hear what we're talking about. And then at the end of the day, I still see the need of collaboration between the government, private sector, NGOs, private suppliers, whatever, whoever is doing anything to do with the health, with this current situation, to be engaged. Otherwise, we'll be speaking, nothing is moving on. This is all my comments.
Thank you, Emma. I think we have a few more questions. The next person who has raised their hand, please unmute yourself and ask the questions. We are almost running out of time.
Okay, this is for you, Naike.
Yes.
We're talking about current scenario that the spread of COVID-19, and also from the discussion, we are talking about life after COVID. But there's a third scenario which we are not addressing, which is living with COVID-19, because we don't know our next tomorrow. So with the unemployment rate going up, people have been losing their job and they'll keep on losing their jobs. Is there any strategy between private sector and government to trace these people and try to help them sustain their life? May giving them, is there any place where we can get data or that plan in place to trace unemployment rate and figure out how can we help these people? Because with this COVID-19 issue.
Yeah, that's a very good question, Aika. A lot of people are now looking at the data. Even just today, I had one of the members of the parliament session was just giving an estimation that he thinks that the tourism sector, more than 400 people are going to lose their jobs. So data is still missing. And I think there is a need for partnership between not only employers, but also the government, so that we can be able to come up with solutions. So that's why I think, as Emma mentioned, we need to all share what is happening. And I believe that the government has the data. I'm not sure if there is a platform where people can be able to access that. Maybe we should just wait. Maybe it's too early for us now to know, but definitely we are going to know very time soon. I think this is a question for you, Mane. If you want to start a startup, is this the right time to do so? Somebody asked that question.
It depends on what you are trying to address. If you are making balakoas, then it's a good time. Yeah, so on a serious note, all businesses, they emerge because there's a problem that needs to be addressed. So if you're able to find the right problem that you're trying to address, then possibly you can be able to actually build a business around it. For example, I can tell you one thing, maybe something which I'm exploring. I might start that startup. So we are all wearing N95 barakoas, but nobody has taken serious measures to think on how we are recycling them. They are all over the place right now. So that is a business opportunity, a very good business opportunity. Think of it this way: in a day, how many of them they are being disposed in an improper way, except in the hospitals? So those are some of the opportunities that might come out of this crisis. I have seen Alan, I'm very sure Alan might have not that down, but it's an amazing opportunity. So again, you can start a startup during this time. Just try to identify a certain niche market and a solution that is more relevant to this particular time. I just also wanted to add on the question that you were responding, Nike. I think that's why we are pushing for coordinated effort and partnerships. I've seen also the minister saying they're estimating the tourism sector will lose 477,000 potential workers who are working in that sector. But I think the number might even be more than that, because the tourism sector in Tanzania, it employs almost, I think, 3% of our population. So again, I think the question of data is very, very important. But again, nobody has all the data. And that's why I need coordination and partnership. So the government can provide the data, innovators can create a visualization portal, investors and a development partner can use it to come up with a proper investment strategy to support these employees, companies. So you need coordinated effort. It's just a very big problem to be solved by one person.
Thank you. We have a question for you, Joseph, on access to education through collective efforts by application innovators such as Shule Direct, MNO, who provide free internet to online platforms, online traditional TV program for schools. Do we see this as something that keeps our students and teachers active rather than enough to smooth reasonable classes when schools will be open? And roughly, what is the coverage of the entire school's population? I think, Joseph, you might have a response to this.
Yes, I might have partial response to that because I'm not going to have the actual numbers. But I think what happened and probably what gave not an opportunity for these service providers to provide like online training, online content was definitely because, of course, our schools are closed. Although some of them are already offering the services to complement what was being done in classrooms. It kind of goes back to the same thing that we said, probably we didn't, not probably, but it's true, we didn't anticipate this kind of crisis to happen. Otherwise, we would have probably had these platforms already available and accessible to everyone. You have seen that we kind of took quite a bit of time to have content on TV so that we can be accessible by everybody. So what I'm seeing, the question is about whether we feel like this is just to occupy kids who are at school and parents, or rather it's all to continue. I think, again, it comes back to the same issue that we said that after COVID, what actually can get out of this. So people are already investing in these kind of platforms to respond to COVID. So that investment needs to be leveraged on even post-COVID. So there must be some kind of try to be able to how we can actually get returns out of this. Second, it's quite handy, especially for those who have got kids who maybe from age 2 and above who are really active that you need to keep grounded. It's actually coming in quite handy, especially those the likes of Ubongo content, but also students who are in secondary school who are preparing, they have to kind of keep updated on, so that by the time they go back to school, they are not rusty. So sure, that is actually helping in that line and also other fronts. And what is already being provided on national TV, that's quite okay. But in another platform, someone was raising actually a question about what about kids who actually so many who are in rural areas who cannot access, they don't have a TV because where they live, there's no electricity. They don't have access to internet for them to have access to content. What are we doing about them? I know there are some partners who have been exploring using radio because it's actually quite accessible to so many rural villages, but that's not enough. Maybe even the environment they are living in might not be quite adequate for them to actually keep learning. So much as there are solutions that are coming, we also have to keep actually thinking about about inclusion. How do we reach those who are not privileged enough to have access to these facilities? So it's a question that probably might have to think about even post-COVID, how we equitably invest our resources to benefit many of our kids. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Joseph. I think I just see the last comment to add to the answer about the recruiter skills. International Labour Office ILO is currently working on constituents on skills development and employability skills training for out-of-school youth, recognition and certification of competences for skilled but unqualified workers in the formal sector. So people have been asking for your contacts. I will share that on the presentation in case they want to get back to you. I would like to take this moment to thank everyone, to thank the panelists for sharing your knowledge and expertise. And also, you guys have been very good. And some comments which we received from the participants also very good. There's a need for collaboration, the government to be involved. Private sector cannot be able to handle this alone. We all have to work as a team right now, as a part of a community to solve these challenges. So thank you, everyone. We'll share the presentation slides and the recording for you to listen to this again. And if you have any more questions, you can directly send it to us and we will respond to that. And somebody's saying, Jumane, they will take you a challenge of the Barakoa. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.